why do we do this? Well, A, they're quite protective. Yeah, if you had to kind of come out of every conversation you had and go, well, let me go into the nuance of that, it'd just be too hard work. Yeah. You'd just be a wreck. And B, it's quick. It's just like you can make big assumptions, and like I say, most of the time you're going to get it right.
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Graham from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Paul from Thinking Focus.
And this is the fourth podcast in a series where we explore common thinking errors. We all have them from time to time. They're perfectly normal.
True.
Most of the time they're mistakes in our thinking. Stuff turns out fine.
Yeah.
Even though we might have them. Sometimes, though, they can get in our way, cause us to be unsuccessful, or even cause us harm, I guess, worst case scenario. And today's podcast, we're talking about mental filtering. So, Paul, the question is, why do we filter out the good stuff?
Mostly because we can. So,
podcast over.
I mean, you talk about sort of thinking errors generally. You sort of said that most of the time it's fine.
Yeah.
We have what we call a lot of low-cost errors. So we have a lot of times when our thinking is actually wrong, but it's irrelevant, and so we don't notice it. We make mistakes all the time in our thinking. We make assumptions. A classic example, I know that car park won't have any spaces in it, so I'm going to go and park over there. And then you walk to the car park and you go, I should have parked here. Yeah. Little things like that.
Yeah.
But you just kind of forget about it because, I've parked and I'm really focused on what I was actually going to, the shopping or the restaurant or the theatre or whatever you were parking for. So most of these things are so, minuscule that we don't worry about it. The problem we have with all these things is that in a small amount of time, thinking errors cause us big problems because they get in the way of our success of what we're trying to do. So it's not saying that they're terrible or that they're, that you've got to get rid of all of your thinking errors, because that would almost be impossible. It's kind of identifying that, can you spot when they're getting in your way, and then do you know what to do about it?
Okay, cool. So mental filtering then.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about that and filtering out the good stuff, what are we talking about?
So we're basically talking about only seeing the problems. Only seeing the negative stuff. And actually you could, typically when we talk about mental filtering, we talk about negative mental filtering. So I go, I'm going to forget everything the good that happened and focus on the one bad thing. But it could be the other way around.
So we can do it the other way.
You can do it the other way around. It tends to be less of a problem when you do it the other way around.
Yeah.
But it might not be. So you sometimes have people who are basically, you might have seen it in the workplace, people who come out and go, oh, that was a great presentation. At the end, everyone clapped. And you went, yeah. But the questions kind of told you had no engagement or buy-in. The fact that people were... I always remember once, years and years and years ago...
They were clapping because it was over.
Yeah, years and years ago. And this is a cultural thing about mental filtering, how it works. I had to give this presentation. I'm in Beijing. I'd never presented in Beijing before. It was a very difficult, rehearsed thing through translators. And I came out, and I'll be honest, I was thoroughly depressed. I mean, I thought, oh my God, have you blown this? Because the level of interactivity, the behaviour in the room, the way it kind of worked. I mean, people were having conversations, and it's just a big meeting room with a big table around, like a giant boardroom table, projection, screen, and quite a lot of smoking as well, which was a bit new to me. At the end of it, it was like being in a nightclub, the projector screen. Not that much, actually.
Really?
It wasn't that long ago. I think it would date it if you said that was in the UK. It wasn't that long ago. They had complimentary green tea and cigarettes, which is the thing I always remember.
Is that not an Oasis album?
Probably should have been. So I came out feeling like this wasn't great. And the guy I was working with, who was a venture capitalist from Hong Kong at the time, came out and went, that was amazing. It's like, all right, okay, check. Why? And he said, I've never seen one of these when no one left the room, because it's a cultural difference.
Okay,
So the fact they were talking to people, but they all stayed. They all wanted to know what was coming next. And that's quite unusual for these long presentations in Chinese culture. People would wander in and out.
Okay.
He said, he said, I've never seen that before. You really had them. But what I'd done was picked up on a few signals, and I'd done mental filtering because I didn't have a reference point for some of the good stuff.
And the cultural reference in as well.
Reference, yeah. And I think that's the point. I got really interested in cultural differences because I went, oh, that's interesting. They see the world completely differently to me. Wonder what that's all. I just thought we spoke different languages, but we were the same at that point.
Yeah.
But you kind of, I could easily have come out of that and gone, that was amazing.
Yeah.
I could easily come out of it and go, that's terrible. And the reality is neither of those two states are true.
Yes.
And so I'm not taking a balanced approach. And I like a lot of thinking errors, you're basically losing all the balance, losing all the nuance.
Yeah.
Now, why do we do this? Well, A, they're quite protective. If you had to kind of come out of every conversation you had and go, well, let me go into the nuance of that, it'd just be too hard work.
Yeah.
You'd just be a wreck. And B, it's quick. It's just like you can make big assumptions, and like I say, most of the time you're going to get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the challenge with mental filtering is it basically steps in the way of action. So if you think about it, if you walk out of a room and go, well, that was terrible, there's no point doing anymore.
Yeah.
That's probably not true.
Yeah.
If you walk out of a room and go, oh, it was amazing, you might be not looking to get any growth or feedback or development out of it, which might actually be the problem. So mental filtering is kind of a tricky distortion, and typically it's turning your mind into a negativity magnet. It's the idea that human beings have a negativity bias. One of the ways I like to think about it is if you think about distant ancestors. So go back to your great grandparents. You probably remember them for you. I don't for me. But the ones that kind of went, oh, I'm not going to eat that because it'll probably kill me. Chances are they stayed around long enough to have children. Yeah. And the ones who kind of went, oh, it'll be okay.
I'll try anything.
they probably became part of the food chain. Yeah. So we're related to people who were quite negative.
Yes, yeah.
Typically.
Still am.
Yeah. That's a different...
Okay.
Yeah. We'll go into that at a different time. So it's really easy to then just pick up on all the negative cues.
Yeah.
Again, there's I think it's Jonathan Haidt who had this comment of, think of your brain like Teflon for good things, Velcro for bad things.
Okay, yeah.
Really love that analogy. And then we start to believe it. So we start to believe our own hype. And that's what we talk about mental filtering. So, you come out of a presentation with the boss and they go, it was really great. Just one thing, next time could you? And then you go, oh my, they've given me terrible feedback. I was awful. And they went, no, they've just given you something to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, sorry to there, but I guess there are some people who do just give you terrible feedback.
They are. And I think
so you're not helped sometimes by others.
Yeah.
Because you did these 30 things great. I'm not going to mention them. This one thing you could have done better, I'm going to tell you did it wrong.
Well, it's what Americans call hamburger feedback, and I think we call it something else in the UK, but I'm not going to mention that on the podcast. It's why it's really terrible, because I always say when talking to people like that, they go, oh, isn't it a great technique? And it's a great technique if you do it really well. Mm. But if you go, like your shoes, you're rubbish at your job, yeah. Oh, we should. Yeah. It's like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And with mental filtering, people who are into mental filtering, they're only going to hear the negative.
Yes, yeah.
That's the challenge.
So you talked to me like from a presentation point of view, from a feedback point of view. Where else might it show up? Particularly at work, I guess.
Well, in work, it shows up in being hypercritical or conscious of anything that goes wrong at the expense of seeing what's going right. So in anything, in a project, we've got 200, lines on this Gantt chart. One of them is behind. The project is failing. Type thing. And that's kind of the worst state. And it then links to other thinking areas that we'll talk about in another podcast, like catastrophization, where you go, well, that one's gone wrong. The project is failing.
Spiral down.
Yeah. My boss is going to hate me. I'm going to lose my job, lose my house. My kids are going to grow up in poverty.
I'm living in a cardboard box.
Yeah. And so you can link these to other things, but often mental filtering is really often the starting point with these things, where you're not picking up the whole of stuff.
Yeah.
And let's not overplay this. It's quite a useful technique sometimes, because if you can identify the bits you've got wrong, you can take action about them. But if that controls your entire state, if that controls your emotional state out of it, then you might not take action. You might just sit in the corner, curl up in a ball and cry. That just might be me, Mum.
But and that, I know we talked in previous podcasts about fix and growth mindsets, and I guess that links in with that growth mindset piece, doesn't it?
It does, very much so.
If I'm looking for feedback, and the phrase I always use to people is, regardless of how the feedback's being delivered. So back to my example of someone's not told you've done loads of great things. they've told you done one thing wrong and they've delivered it in a way that's not really come over very well, ignoring that, but maybe I can learn from that piece of feedback, or if I can spot the negative stuff, if negative's the right word, I can grow and develop, but also spot some of the positive stuff that goes, yeah, I did okay with these things. This is where the improvement is.
Yeah, and I think some of the language we use is really important here, because I think positive and negative can sometimes be really useless language.
Yeah.
I know, like, often we use expressions like, well, what went well, what could have been better?
Yeah.
Because actually, could have been better opens the door to go, well, do I want to do something about it?
Yeah.
Whereas it was bad,
Yeah.
it's kind of a bit final.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like, well,
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
Life is over, you're a wreck.
Yeah. Living in a cardboard box.
Yeah, exactly. That's an 80s song, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah. That was Living in a Box. Wasn't that both the group and the song?
I think it was. Yeah. Do you know what? It's never dawned on me to now that was all about catastrophization.
That was all about thinking errors.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and
They're
listen
ahead
to
of
that
the
again.
time, obviously.
Yeah, so I think it is about kind of seeing things into perspective and saying, how do I give myself enough of a picture to put some balance on it?
Yeah.
Accepting that everything we do probably has a level of things we get right and a level of things we get wrong. You have to also calibrate those. I got these 5 things right. I got these 2 things wrong.
Yeah.
Are these 2 things more important than these 5? Less important than these 5?
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost putting some, I'm going to call it weightings or rankings on some of those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think back to when I was selling and I had a scenario where I had a difficult conversation with somebody much more senior than me that went to a meeting with a customer with me, and I was late. I got stuck in traffic and I wasn't there on time. They went in without me. And all their focus at the end of the meeting was I was late.
Right.
And then I had to sort of point out to this very senior person, we closed the deal. Our goal was to do this, close this deal.
Yeah.
We achieved all of those objectives. You're focused on one thing that was outside of my control.
Yeah. But we achieved the end result.
We achieved the end result. Now, look, is there some learning for me? Yeah, if you go to a meeting with a very senior person, stay the night before down the road or something, because they don't like it if you're late. But and that I have to take on board. But they were doing mental filtering. They suddenly had not been able to see we'd achieved our goal.
Yeah.
Completely lost on them. They were stuck on this one thing that was so.
Yeah.
And there were some other things there, because there was some all or nothing. They'd got some behavioural things. I'd crossed a line in their set of rules. But again, they were all thinking errors leading up.
Yeah.
But it starts with, can you see balance?
Yeah.
And so that question, I always like that. WWW is not necessarily just World Wide Web. It's what went well.
Yeah.
And can you step back from any situation and go, all right, look, okay, that wasn't what I wanted, but what went well?
Yeah.
And let's calibrate that in the big picture of stuff.
Yeah.
So I can see where we stand.
So there's something about balancing. There's something about calibration. What if anything else can we do then in terms of where we recognise this thinking error has kicked in? We've done some mental filtering. It's not been helpful, whatever the right words are. What else apart from balance and calibration?
So one of the things that I think is quite interesting is that kind of highlight audit. So go back and say, and it's a bit like the what went well, but it's like go back and say, let's go through this and list out the highlights and list out and create that list. So that's one of the things we can do. The other is to do that step back. So like I did with the deal thing.
Yeah.
When you step back and go, what was our goal? What were we trying to do? The thing that went wrong, very quickly as you get distance from it, becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's a bit like I was watching a thing on this is like a weird thing on what's the movie? It's gone. Stand By Me.
Okay. Yeah.
This thing on Stand By Me, and they were talking about how the movie came about and the characters, and they're talking about there's one scene in Stand By Me, and I think it's in the director's commentary, where they're laughing because the young character in it, and I don't know all the character names in the movie, but the young character is played by Chris O'Connell, who was very new to acting at the time, but did an amazing job in there, talking about how good an actor he was, but how many mistakes he made. And this one scene, as they walk away, they stop the frame and they go, look. His microphone was hanging out the bottom of his trousers, and they've left it in. No one spotted it, and they left it in. Now, the mental filtering is, oh my God, that's terrible. We've got to do all that again.
Yeah.
They're going, this scene was brilliant. The acting was great. The emotion was great. The fact that if you stop and look really carefully, they're not in the 1960s and there's a radio mic hanging at the bottom of his trousers is irrelevant. So I really like that kind of picture of it. So it's step back and go, what were we trying to achieve here? And then reframing, go, okay, if I had to talk about this to somebody else, if somebody else was giving me this story, what would I actually be saying back to them? And that kind of be a coach to yourself. Because sometimes when we get into a mental filtering point of view, we get so locked on the bad things that we cease to be able to see the good things. And that, I think that is partly because of how minds work as well, because memory and a lot of the way we think is heavily connected to emotional state. So if the bad thing feels bad, it almost feels like it's blocking access to the good things. You meet people who are really sad or really unhappy, and you say to them, think something about something happy. Yeah. There is nothing happy. I'll have no happy thoughts ever again. And it's because our brain is using emotion to access memory.
Yeah, and in fact, on the last one, when we talked about catastrophizing, we touched on, again, I know we've covered it in more detail in previous podcasts, that kind of the emotional rational response and, kind of how sometimes if we're leading from an emotional response, which we do most of the time, how do we move into the rational space? And sometimes we need help from other people to do that, don't we?
We do. And I think that then if you do a lot of mental filtering, getting good at receiving feedback, and this might sound really strange, but as you mentioned before, my experience is in the workplace, most people are really bad at giving feedback. And I mean really bad at giving feedback. And no disrespect to them, because we don't train people how to give feedback. Yeah. We're not taught how to do it. You go to a manager and they're all,
you're now a manager, you've got this magical power of giving feedback. Off you go.
And it's a superpower skill that you have to go and learn. And so sometimes it's quite useful to learn how to ask for feedback, because the person you're asking for feedback from can't give it very well. Yeah. So you have to ask very specific questions. So I think there's a couple of tricks I use with people when I'm talking about mental filtering when they're getting feedback. One is be very specific about the feedback you want. Tell me in that session, what are the 2 or 3 things that were really powerful that I need to keep doing? Tell me what's the one thing I could improve on and how you think it could be different. Don't just go, what do you think? Yeah. Because most people can't deal with that question. So there's some tricks around asking for that feedback, and be really balanced about making sure people give you balanced feedback. If somebody goes, what happened in that meeting? Oh, you got this wrong, you got that wrong. Okay, great, brilliant. What was the impact of those things? What do you think I should do differently about it? Right, now, what did I get right? Are you sitting here telling me from the second I opened the door to the second we left, I got everything wrong? Yeah. Because if they're saying yes, you go, all right, they're doing mental filtering. Yeah. Because that can't possibly be true. You're saying I poured the water wrong? I sat down wrong? I picked the wrong seat in around the table? It's just that level of ridiculousness.
It reminds me when we've delivered like presentation skills sessions and people are presenting to their peers, and the question we always ask them is that, what would you like feedback on before they start? So they're kind of going, is it a content thing? Is it a style thing? Which just then means that the audience who are going to give feedback are primed for looking for something a bit more specific, and kind of then in terms of when the feedback's delivered. Because I think the challenge you see sometimes is peers delivering feedback. They want to be nice to people.
Yeah,
so they filter the good stuff as opposed to the what's going to help them to grow and develop.
I did a course a while ago where everybody, I was a delegate, not running it, and everybody had to kind of have a go at the thing we were talking about. And they were getting feedback from the group. And what I realised really quickly is that I started feeling guilty because I was giving people real feedback. I was using feedback techniques and going, you did this, I like that, I didn't like that, think about this. Everybody else was going, oh, I really like the way you did it. There was no...
Yeah. You go around the room and like 5 people going, really nice, really nice, really nice. Yeah. Comes to you, you're going, okay, here it comes.
Yeah. So
I agree with all that stuff. But
you were really good, but you might want to think about this one bit. Started making me feel like, have I moved from feedback to bullying in this session? And I had to stop and go, no, hang on, there's that. The other thing to think about with mental filtering, take it out of the workplace and just life in general. There are times in our life when we deal with really challenging bits, whether that's home life, whether that's work, whether that's parents, children, financial, moving house. And it's really easy at those times to be surrounded by negativity, to be surrounded by problems I have to fix. I think at the moment you add on to that, you come home and then you turn on the telly and the news is just negativity.
Yeah.
Because the news thrives on negativity. That's their business model.
Yeah.
It's let's tell you what's wrong with the world, because that's quite sticky and addictive.
Yeah.
You don't get, news at 10, bong, nothing happened today, everything was good.
Although they did used to close with, and here's a picture of a squirrel surfboarding.
Yeah.
Don't get that anymore.
You don't do that anymore because it doesn't get, it's not sticky enough. It doesn't track you in. And so I think at times you have to go, I might not be actively mental filtering. It just might be surrounded by so much of this stuff. And then you flip it round. So one of the things I love in there is just to take things like a gratitude habit and just take moments when you stop and just remind your brain for a moment that not everything is terrible.
Yeah.
And if all you do is once a week go, right now, this week, 3 things I'm grateful for. What has gone well this week? What is good? Suddenly it's kind of resetting the balance and reminding yourself that not everything is terrible. Because I think when you're at those really difficult points in work projects, in sales opportunities, in career opportunities, or in life opportunities like moving house, or sometimes the level of challenge can be so overwhelming that you start to go, and therefore the world is awful, without recognizing that, no, actually I'm just experiencing some difficult things, probably difficult things that are completely within my ability to deal with, but there's just a lot of them, so it's feeling hard.
Yeah.
And that suddenly you can't see that actually that your kids are having a great time at school and they're progressing, and the new house you're going to buy is amazing, and you didn't get that job, but there's other opportunities you could go for that are probably even better. Yeah. And all of that suddenly just disappears in this fog of,
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a good point to end the
podcast. The fog of
the fog of yeah. I was going to practice some gratitude and say thank you for that, Paul. That was very insightful. I will give you some feedback later about all the stuff you did wrong, but we haven't got time in this podcast. It'll be another 15 minutes. So on that note, thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll be in the corner crying.
Next time on The Question Is.
You watch football commentators, and their predictions are basically a projection of the team last year. So they go...
Or even last game.
Sometimes last game. But particularly at the start of a season, you listen to them all talk about it, and what they're saying is, based on what this group of people did last year.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organisation, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.